Well, nobody else is going to tell you this, so I'm going to have to. And I know that this really goes back to the basics, but sometimes we need a little bit of a rewind. The whole point of the spring program is to get guys ready for training camp, ready for the 2026 regular season. So some players over the course of the recently concluded 49ers spring program didn't practice on certain days. Mike Evans even flew out to Texas because he had to take care of something with his family for the OTA session when the media was first there. Ricky Pearsall, another very important 49ers receiver, did not practice the last time that we were out on the field. It doesn't mean that he's hurt. Doesn't mean that Christian Kirk is hurt when he doesn't practice. This is load management time for the 49ers. There's a reason why they're not running a mini camp this week, the veteran mini camp, because they felt that they got the work in. And I'll tell you what, they were very, very happy with Ricky Pearsall over the course of this camp. Here's a look at Ricky Pearsall during OTAs. Little custom-made handshake with Dominic Pooney. The news is good on all fronts for Ricky Pearsall. I think he's one of the most unfairly covered players that I've had a chance to cover over my 10 years following this football team. The guy got shot in the chest before the start of his rookie season in 2024. Ended up putting up good numbers in 2024. And then this in 2025. Now, one thing that's super exciting for the 49ers is green is obviously above average in terms of success rate. Red is below average in terms of success rate. This is the route tree for Ricky Pearsall. There are only 2 red lines. 9 routes, which are the goal balls, and comeback routes. Well, guess where Mike Evans, the 49ers' newest receiver addition, is at his best? On comebacks and on 9 routes. I think that the wide receiver 1, wide receiver 2 combination of Ricky Pearsall and Mike Evans is perfectly complementary, because right where Pearsall was deficient in the route tree that I just showed you, that's where Mike Evans is at his best. And we actually heard from George Kittle on the Pat McAfee show talking about Mike Evans. And when we, discuss the projection for who's going to produce statistically for the 49ers this year, perhaps the best news for Ricky Pearsall and for this 49ers team as a whole is that Mike Evans is going to be drawing a lot of attention at the X wide receiver position. But listen to George Kittle, because he does know this very, very well.
And like, just to have someone in the building like that, it's awesome, because all it can do is help us. And I will say, he's still really, really fast. He is still running insane routes. And like, I'm just watching from the sideline because I'm not practicing right now. And like, just seeing him get open on like 1v1 man coverage was just so cool to see, like how he breaks down to, like, he has a 12-yard stop route. Like, he just 12 yards back down his stem. And he literally sells like an out to an in to back down his stem. And the DB has no idea what he's doing. And he's 5 yards away.
So that was Kittle talking about Evans and his ability to get open. Even he's going to be 33 years old this year. So I think there's a lot of consternation whenever you see a receiver entering his mid-30s. Is he going to be able to keep his speed up? Is he going to lose a step? And is that, in the world of narrow margins that is the NFL, is that going to be a deal breaker for his ability to get open? One thing about Mike Evans is that he's never, I think, really used pure speed to get open. He's always been the big guy, obviously, at 6'5" and 230 pounds. So he's used his size, but he's used body control, and he's used deception. He's used his smarts to be able to get open, and that's going to age very, very well, age very gracefully in this league. But two, you look at the whole structure of the 49ers offense, Mike Evans plays the X receiver. The 49ers didn't have a bona fide X receiver, not only this past year, but for most of 2024. There's a reason that they extended themselves to pay Brandon Aiyuk so much money, because they need the X. They need somebody who's going to make the job easier for everybody else, because just geometrically he attracts safety attention over toward his side of the field. So now Ricky has that. Ricky has the X taken care of with Mike Evans. They're trying to take care of the X position for the long run with Dejon Stribling. You can't convince me that X is not in the cards for Stribling at some point in the future. And I think that they realize that Mike Evans is 33. Mike Evans had some injury issues last year. The 49ers know that you can't put all the X eggs in one basket with Mike Evans. You've got to make sure that you have somebody else who can play that super important gravitational position. And I think Dejon Stribling has the physical attributes to learn from Mike Evans and play there down the road, but maybe even contribute in the short run for the 49ers. What that does is that it opens up Ricky Pearsall to just stick at the Z, the flanker position. There's a different, I've said this multiple times over the offseason, but people just really aren't processing the different receiver positions and how, certain ones like the X can spring others open. The Z doesn't play the split end. The Z is not lined up along the line of scrimmage, anchored in place at the snap, having to work against the biggest, strongest cornerbacks. The Z is the flanker. And if you can keep Ricky Pearsall at the Z because you have the X taken care of, the production is set to be off the charts. And Pearsall's been healthy this offseason. Ricky Pearsall has looked fast. He's looked spry. He made a couple really, really nice catches when he had a chance to see him at OTAs. And look at where Pearsall has been throughout his NFL career so far. And this is this is 2021. This is 2025. This is just last season. 2024, he came on strong at the end of the season, but I put together these numbers up on the screen from 2025. This is the entire season's worth of yards per route run. This is Ricky Pearsall compared to all rookie wideouts picked in 2024. Pearsall played most of the season with the after effects of that PCL injury, wasn't fully healed. His yards per route run number was second only to Malik Neighbors. And before he got hurt, Ricky Pearsall was at 2.27 yards per route run, which would have been number one of any receiver in that draft class. It is safe to say, based on the numbers that Pearsall put up weeks 1 to 4, based on this right here, reception perception put this out, it is safe to say that a healthy Ricky Pearsall is a stud. Is somebody who, if paired with a good X wide receiver, can wreak havoc from the Z position. Because as the flanker, you can come in motion. It's a lot easier, I think, to beat potential press coverage. You can be much more slippery. They call him Slick Rick for a reason. It is fair to say that a healthy Ricky Pearsall is somebody who can put up massive, massive numbers with Brock Purdy for the 49ers. Now, this is another thing that nobody will tell you about Ricky Pearsall because they're so obsessed with this injury narrative. The man played 5 years of college football and did not miss a single game. It is not like the 49ers drafted somebody who had massive availability issues over the larger sample of college football. Ricky Pearsall did not miss a single game in college. And he might not have missed a single game his rookie season had he not gotten shot in the chest. That has nothing to do with football. That was not Ricky Pearsall's fault. He got shot in the chest and still managed to play that season. So what we're actually dealing with now with Ricky Pearsall in the large picture, and I'm talking about college and I'm talking about the first 2+ seasons of his NFL career, we are dealing with one injury. We're dealing with only one football injury that compromised him in 2025. It is absolutely insane. It is dishonest. It is illogical. It is stupid. It is all of those things to take one injury that happened in week 4 against Jacksonville on a nice catch, by the way. He made a nice play. And say that because of that, Ricky Pearsall is injury prone. It's just not true. This is one injury that's caused him to miss time over the course of his entire NFL career and his entire college career. The guy did not miss a single game in 5 years of college. So one injury is not a trend. And now Ricky Pearsall is going to have a chance to prove what he can do when he is healthy for the 49ers moving into this 2025 season. With Mike Evans on the 49ers, with Dejon Stribling on the 49ers. I'll say, too, the 49ers drafted Jacob Cowing in 2024, obviously a couple rounds after Ricky Pearsall. Jacob Cowing had a very, very nice spring for the 49ers. And they've got Jordan Watkins, who made some plays in the spring for this football team. And it goes beyond that. We'll see if guys like Will Pauling can stick around the building, at least on the practice squad. That's the undrafted rookie out of Notre Dame. Wesley Grimes, another option for San Francisco. And then, of course, there's Demarcus Robinson, who gives you some veteran insurance at that receiver room. All in all, I mean, on paper, I think it's the best wide receiver room the 49ers have had under Kyle Shanahan. Now, George Kittle made a really interesting point when he spoke following one of the 49ers practices the other day. He said this is the first time the 49ers have a true veteran, mature leader wide receiver, Mike Evans, in the room since Emmanuel Sanders in 2019. And he made sure to say, no offense to Brandon Aiyuk and Deebo Samuel. You don't have to take offense. We understand what George Kittle is saying. We're talking true veteran who's seen thousands and thousands and thousands of snaps over the course of his NFL career. Emmanuel Sanders had seen that, and he provided a tremendous resource to younger 49ers receivers in 2019. George Kittle is, this is a wild fact, by the way, a little bit of a tangent, but I'll bring it back. He's only 2 months younger than Mike Evans. So George Kittle has seen a lot of football. He can impart knowledge on the 49ers. And then, of course, there's Evans, who's going to be 33 years old this year. Like Emmanuel Sanders in 2019, somebody who's seen a ton of football, can be the elder statesman of the room, and also the all-important ex-wide receiver for the 49ers. And somebody who can, you see the talent that they have in the room with Pearsall and his separation ability, Pearsall and how good he's been when he's been available for the 49ers. Dejon Stribling, somebody who can block. I mean, that's really, really important. Same thing with Mike Evans. They weren't able to block on the perimeter consistently last year. And, the Z receiver position where Pearsall plays, I would actually say that's probably the least important in terms of blocking ability. Pearsall, more charged with getting open. Be slippery, be open. Use the motion from the flanker spot to do what you need to inflict damage in the pass game downfield. You need your X to be a really good blocker, and you need your big slot receiver to be a really good blocker. Well, there's Evans. There's Dejon Stribling. They thought he was the best blocker downfield in all of college football this past year. Of course, you want your tight ends to block well, and I think you need everybody on the offense to carry their share of the load. And, that's a huge part of this for the 49ers moving forward into 2026. I said something today that I stand by, and I'll say it again. And, I'm sure this was controversial. I didn't read any of the replies to it, but people always seem to take exception to this kind of stuff. Mike Evans will likely have a bigger positive impact on the 49ers than Myles Garrett has on the Rams. That's not saying that Mike Evans is a better player than Myles Garrett, and it's totally stupid to even try to compare the two as far as quality of player goes, because they play completely different positions. They're both going to be Hall of Famers one day. That's all I know. But this is simple logic. The Rams already had a top 8 pass rush last year. They number 8 in pass rush win rate. They weren't deficient at defensive end. I mean, Jared Verse, the player whom Myles Garrett has replaced, is an upper tier player. He's one of the better defensive ends in the game. So the Rams, the Rams pass rush should be better, but the 49ers wide receiver core with Mike Evans can be absolutely transformed. Because the 49ers, unlike the Rams at defensive end, the 49ers at receiver were extremely deficient last year, particularly at the X. And that's a spot that if you fix it, it compounds. And I could explain how it compounds again in case people aren't understanding. But the X, taking the attention of the best cornerback and some of the attention of the safety, it's like a big planet in the solar system. The bigger planets have bigger draws gravitationally, right? I know Pluto's not a planet anymore. I wish it was. But Pluto had a smaller gravitational pull, a weaker gravitational pull than a planet like Neptune or a planet like Jupiter or even Earth. Right? So a strong X wide receiver has a stronger gravitational pull. If you could just distract the safety, even if he's just looking over toward you, Doesn't necessarily even have to take many steps toward you, but if some of his attention is coming over toward the X, room opens for other players. It's another reason why Christian McCaffrey is such an important player for the 49ers, because of the gravity that he creates. It's the Steph Curry effect. We're talking about basketball right now. I'm actually going to be flying to New York tomorrow. I'm excited. I'm not, as of right now, I'm not going to the game, but I just wanted to check out the vibe of the NBA Finals in New York. Going to do a night there. If anybody has tickets for free or cheaper, you could email me. I doubt. I looked last time I looked, it was like $9,000 to get into Madison Square Garden. Anyway, we'll have some cool content out from New York, and we'll see if there's any gravity on the floor imposed by some three-point shooters. I know Steph Curry, the best in the world at that for a long time. Christian McCaffrey is so huge for the 49ers offense in that regard. But everybody in every acquisition in the NFL operates within the ecosystem of a team. The 49ers have a lot of room for improvement at wide receiver. So picking up Mike Evans has a potentially major impact in that regard. And, getting Ricky Pearsall back, that goes hand in hand with Mike Evans. That has a major potential impact in that regard. And then, you go to the Rams, they picked up Myles Garrett. Well, of course, Myles Garrett's a big time impact player, but they're actually addressing a position that was not nearly as desperately bad as the 49ers were at receiver last year. The biggest problem for the 49ers was wide receiver. The 49ers have all the tools, I think, if they could, especially if they could figure out left guard. And the video yesterday was about left guard. They might run a timeshare at that left guard position. That's the last starting position to be determined on this 49ers offense. But between a top-level quarterback, more running back depth now, Kalen Black behind Christian McCaffrey, a top-level running back, and obviously a receiving room that's been totally redone. Once George Kittle returns, and we'll see when that happens, he was talking on the McAfee show about week one again. I'm skeptical, but we'll see with George Kittle. The 49ers do, on paper, have all the pieces to be the top offense in the league. They didn't have the receivers last year to be the top offense in the league, period. They may not have had the running back depth last year to do it, because I don't know if Brian Robinson was trusted enough in the pass game. But they just needed more separation and better run blocking from their receivers on the outside. That was the main weakness of this team. They have it now, okay? So for the 49ers in the big picture, it's about realizing that potential on offense. You've got the personnel in the building. Obviously, a big part of that is staying healthy. And then it's about, okay, well, where can the defense be? If the offense is a top 3 offense, where does the defense need to be to put the 49ers into firm Super Bowl contention? Does it need to be top 12? I think with a really good special teams unit like they had last year, a top 3 offense and a top 12 defense plus a top 3 special teams unit, yes, absolutely, the 49ers are firm Super Bowl contenders. I think if the special teams falls and is mediocre this year, you got to have a top 8 defense. I think you've got to be top 3 offense, top 8 defense, and that's a little bit more of a stretch, right? They were in the 20s last year defensively. Now they were very hurt. The biggest acquisitions for the 49ers this offseason, well, Mike Evans is a massive acquisition, but I would say that even bigger is Nick Bosa and, Fred Warner. They get both of those guys back. Obviously, a new defensive coordinator in Raheem Morris. We'll see how some of these younger players and rookies make jumps heading into 2026. But if a healthy 49ers defense can register top 12 play, they are absolutely in the mix with the offense that they figure to project, here into 2026. All right, I'm ready to answer some questions. We'll see if Mike has anything for me to go over, but I'm going to go ahead and wade into that comment section. Excited for the little trip to New York tomorrow. We'll make some good 49ers content from New York. I already have a video cooking for tomorrow, but wanted to talk about the receiver position today. And you guys have the stage now in the comment section, where I must say that the mundanity of the offseason is easy to overcome when a team like the 49ers is here to be talked about with all of its star players. The reason I said mundanity is because Terry asked me to use mundanity in a sentence at some point in this show. So thanks, Terry, for the super chat. Mundanity is the noun form of mundane, which is an adjective, which means ordinary, boring. Well, this part of the offseason can be ordinary and boring, But I am here to make it exciting for all of you because we're talking about the 49ers. We're talking about a team that has more A-list foundational pillars than any other team in the NFL. I mean, you want to talk about rosters and strength of rosters and the Rams building their juggernaut. The 49ers have built something really, really nice in their own right. I mean, let's put this on the entire screen. Yellow shade means foundational pillar. Nick Bosa right now is hurt, so I don't have him shaded in yellow. So that would be one more to this list. But Purdy, McCaffrey, Juszczyk, these are all star players. Mike Evans, George Kittle. I guess I should put George Kittle into that injury shade, but he started out as yellow here. Trent Williams, Osa Igazua. That's a good defensive tackle. It's one of the better pass rushing defensive tackles in the league. Nick Bosa, Fred Warner, Deommodore Lenoir. I mean, on the surface level, when we talk about star power, the 49ers have quite a bit of it. And we'll see if they can add another defensive end. We'll see how it all shakes out before the trade deadline. Ultimately, though, the NFL is about how much quality speed and energy and just quality play, obviously, can you get from the guys outside your foundational pillars? Because nobody's going to have 53 foundational pillars on their roster. It's just impossible. The salary cap, it's just not practical. You have to get guys on rookie deals. You have to find bargain bin veterans. That's the only way that you can be a stable success in this league. And that's why I go back to the depth chart and I say, okay, well, how will the players in green, the rookies, pan out for the 49ers? How are they going to fit on the 53-man? And then, of course, how are the free agents, the players shaded in teal, how are they going to fit? I did that offensive line video yesterday. You should definitely watch it if you haven't had a chance to yet. Right now I have Robert Jones in the lead for the left guard position. Carver Willis is going to be competing for that as well. So is Brett Toth for the 49ers. It's an interesting, and obviously Connor Colby too. I'm going to put Connor Colby over here. I'm going to project Connor to make the roster after all the talk that we've heard about him over the course of OTAs. I'm going to have to bump somebody down, obviously, to make that happen. He wasn't good last year, but I think that Connor has made some strides, and I think they want him to win that left guard spot because you've got some contractual control there. I don't necessarily think that you can expect a rookie like Carver Willis to step in. Maybe it's a timeshare for the 49ers. That's something that Chris Foerster hinted at, but obviously a really, really important battle happening for San Francisco as they try to maximize the potential of this offense. Tell me your major at Stanford, Carrie says. My major at Stanford was international relations with a minor in modern languages, Italian and Czech. Here's a comment. We're all expecting big things this season for Pearsall to get Bosa and Fred and Kittle back. It could be a great season for the 49ers. You just got to keep the guys that you get back, right? But, I mean, that's the case in any NFL season. The team that is healthiest is typically the team that is raising the trophy at the very end. The fact that the 49ers made it as far as they did last year, despite being as injured as they did, was exceptional. It's something that could absolutely give them not only fuel this year, but I think that if you're prognosticating out my go for the 49ers, you say, well, this team's got a lot of fight, a lot of depth. They're really well coached because they are able to do what they did last season despite all of the injuries. But you saw that there was a limit. Finally, if you're constantly probing the edge, eventually you're going to find the edge, and that's when you fall to your death. And that happened to the 49ers in 2025. They found the edge when they played a healthy Seattle Seahawks team, which was one of the great teams that we've ever seen, especially one of the great defenses that we've ever seen. The Seahawks might be a little bit worse this year. Maybe they'll keep it even. You know, the offense could pick up a little bit more slack for Seattle if they take a step forward under Sam Darnold. I don't know. You have to worry about yourself if you're the 49ers. Same thing. The Rams probably better, right? They've added Trent McDuffie, Jalen Watson, and Myles Garrett on the defensive side. But the Rams, I think, are set to regress a little bit offensively. They're only older. Puka's been in and out of rehab this offseason, and you're not going to catch the league by storm with 13 personnel anymore, by surprise with 13 personnel anymore. Stafford getting near and near 40 years old. So, you don't know exactly how good these teams are going to be. Nobody knows right now. It's a guessing game at this point. You can make educated guesses. My educated guess on the 49ers, though, is that they're not going to be nearly as injured as they were last year. We'll see on that part. But I do know that when they were healthy last year, they went out and they beat the Seahawks on the road, and they weren't healthy when they beat the Rams on the road. But my point still stands, is that even at a diminished state, the 49ers were strong enough to create waves and win 13 total games, including one over the defending champs in the playoffs in a super competitive division in an NFC. So if they're at full strength and they've addressed their biggest weakness, that wide receiver position that we're talking about today, Ricky Pearsall, a big part of that equation, logic tells us that the 49ers are going to be right in the thick of things in 2026. Kittle keeps on saying that he's ahead of schedule, but the problem is that they play earlier than the typical week 1 game because they're in Australia, right? It's basically Thursday night Pacific time. It's Friday morning in Melbourne. And it's a 15-hour flight to get out there, and flights are not known to be good for players recovering from injuries. Will the 49ers even risk putting Kittle on that long of a flight and then playing a football game at the Melbourne Cricket Ground? It might not be smart. Now, one of the issues is that the games against the Rams, who on paper have a very strong team. Nobody's arguing that. You're probably going to want George Kittle. He could help you against the Myles Garrett. He can help you against that pass rush. Byron Young is going to be coming off the edge as well. Is it one where the 49ers say we can't risk this, or is this one where they send George Kittle out there and he's more of a decoy? Here's one thing about the 49ers offense this year. You can write this down. Bookmark this, write this down. I think if the 49ers have a healthy offense this year, both literally and figuratively, I'm not so sure that the usual suspects, like the older guys, the guys who might end up in the Hall of Fame, Mike Evans for sure, Kittle for sure, Christian McCaffrey probably. I'm not so sure that they're going to put up record numbers this year. I almost think that the biggest indicator of a healthy 49ers offense this season structurally would be a lessened load as far as touches go for your older veteran big names like your George Kittle, like your Christian McCaffrey, like your Mike Evans. And because those guys have such gravitational pulls, much higher than expected statistical production from your Ricky Pearsalls, your Dejon Striblings, your Kalon Blacks. I think that's where the money can really be made for the 49ers offense this year, is if Evans plays his role as the gravitational pull at X, if Christian McCaffrey is the gravity that we know that he has been, if George Kittle blocks well and generates some defensive attention coming his way, then that's where Ricky Pearsall can eat coming from the Z receiver position. That's where Dejon Stribling, who was a great yak guy in college, can eat coming from wide receiver 3. That to me would be the sign of a very, very healthy, newly explosive 49ers offense. Because think about it. The opposite of what I just described was true last year. Christian McCaffrey had a career high 413 touches, but it was Christian McCaffrey's least explosive season. I don't think it was Christian McCaffrey's fault. I think that everybody was focused on him, and 49ers didn't have very good perimeter blocking to boot. So, of course, he's going to have a high touch rate, but he's not going to really deliver the explosives that he had in years prior. So when McCaffrey was used as heavily as he was last year, it wasn't actually great news for the 49ers. If the usage for McCaffrey is naturally lower because the 49ers offense is funneling open pathways to some of the younger explosive players, that's great for San Francisco. If Mike Evans is not taking as many hits, if George Kittle is not taking as many hits, if Christian McCaffrey is not taking as many hits because they're in a little bit more of a decoy mode this year. I'm not saying a full-out decoy mode, but I'm talking about the health and balance of the offense. And as a result, Ricky Pearsall is moving in motion, coming out of that flanker spot, working against cornerback twos, cornerback nickelbacks at some point from other teams when he's working out of the slot 20, 30% of the time. And that generates a lot of yak. Would be the sign of a cooking 49ers offense. So just from like a statistical preview here, if we look at how will this be constructed, how will the football be distributed, that is something I would look out for. And of course, the explosive health of the run game is going to be very, very tied to potential success in the pass game. This is a good question. Who has a bigger impact, Mike Evans or Emmanuel Sanders? I think Emmanuel Sanders had a really good impact on the development of younger receivers like Deebo Samuel. He took off after Emmanuel Sanders showed up for the 49ers in 2019. I think as far as X's and O's impact, though, I mean, Emmanuel Sanders wasn't a pure X. Emmanuel Sanders was a versatile wide receiver, played a ton of slot for the 49ers. Didn't really have the body type nor the speed, especially at that point of his career, to be considered a bona fide X. So whereas he was monumentally important in helping develop some of the 49ers receivers and making some clutch catches for San Francisco, Mike Evans is a generational X wide receiver, which is so important in Shanahan's scheme. So I think that Evans is going to have a fundamentally bigger impact, health permitting, for San Francisco coming out of that X receiver position. Here is a smart comment. Best room they've had of recent years. Obviously, Mike Evans could be a possession guy, could be a red zone guy. Pearsall, the traditional route runner. You love that out of the flanker position. Kirk is a traditional slot, who you could run, in many spots. You can have him as the F. I think he could play the Z as well. Demarcus Robinson is good depth. He can play the X as depth, as we saw last year in the playoffs. And then Cowing, I think, brings a different explosive speed dimension that the 49ers don't have with a lot of these other guys. And obviously, Dejon Stribling is prototypically built. He can play the X, I think, from his physical standpoint, but he could start at the Jawan Jennings big slot position. You have both the small slot and the big slot covered in this receiver core for the 49ers. And we didn't even get to Jordan Watkins when we were going through that little breakdown. So I thought that was a really good comment. Tom says, if Kalon Black can do what he did in Indiana, then he could hide the offensive line's weaknesses. Well, I mean, that's the thing. The Kalon Black was great after contact at Indiana. It was like 3.4 yards after contact per rush. He looked fast in OTAs. I didn't get to see him breaking tackles because they didn't have pads on. He's just a good running back, right? I mean, that's what we know from his college tape. If it can port to the NFL level, yes, like he makes everybody around him look better. If you can break tackles, you're a good back. And then obviously, if you can threaten out of the backfield in the pass game, you keep a defense off balance. The run game in general, like if you can pop explosives with the run, you force defenses to dedicate a little bit of extra attention to it. The second that a defense dedicates extra attention to the offense, that's when Kyle Shanahan can come in with his counter in the pass game. That's where Brock Purdy can truly burn you with explosives in the pass game. So it's a downward spiral when you don't have explosives in the run game, because the defense doesn't have to dedicate extra bodies to the run game, and then they can contain your explosives in the pass game. And, that's the doom loop. I think the 49ers hit a bit of the doom loop last year. They still had a good offense. They didn't have an explosive one, though. It wasn't the fault of their quarterbacks. I don't think it was the fault of their offensive line. It was the lack of production outside, both in the run game and the pass game. And that's something that they've tried to rectify this season. And then, Kalon Black can also obviously help that with how skilled of a running back he showed to be at the University of Indiana. I don't know who you're saying is made of glass, but Ricky Pearsall did not miss if you're talking about Ricky Pearsall, I've seen this with him. Did not miss a single game in 5 years of college football. He's had one injury that has kept him out of games at the NFL level. So I just think if you're going to be rational, if you're going to be real, if you know you don't want to sound ridiculous and you want to base what you're saying on facts and not feelings, implying that Ricky Pearsall is made of glass, it just isn't true. Like you have to look to see what the actual track record is, and it was the PCL last year, and those can be so troublesome. Those have sidelined a lot of guys for a long period of time. A PCL ended Christian McCaffrey's season in 2024. It wasn't the Achilles, it was the PCL that he hurt when he slammed his knee in the snow against Buffalo. So this is football. You know, people need to grow up. This is not Madden with injuries turned off, with some cheat code punched in. I don't even play the video game, so I'm not going to pretend to know what the terminology is. But this is real life NFL football. There are injuries. There's adversity. There's depth is needed to get through some of these seasons. And track records absolutely do matter, especially when you don't have a large enough sample. When a guy gets shot in the chest his rookie year and you only have one season to work with, and you say, okay, hey, this PCL derailed his season. He was really good before that PCL. How did he look before, his NFL career? Because probably a bigger sample would be handy to look at. He didn't miss a single college game. Okay, well, maybe you got to give this guy a chance heading into his third year to see what he can do, especially since he was so damn productive for the 49ers when out on the field last year. Again, case in point for Ricky Pearsall. His yards per route run, the highest of any receiver drafted in the 2024 class over the course of those first 4 weeks before the PCL. Thank you, sir. I really appreciate it. Nice little super chat. No question, though. I wish I could answer your question, but we'll see. Mike asked me, is Jordan Watkins making the team? Here's the thing. I just got done talking about how this is the NFL and how guys get hurt. Obviously, like everybody watching this follows the 49ers, so I don't think that's necessarily breaking news to you guys. Somebody here in this receiver room is probably going to be dinged up at some point in training camp or early in the season. Right now, I would put Cowing ahead of Watkins. Let's make that change right now. Let's put Jacob Cowing behind Pearsall at one of the Z spots. Now let's put Jordan Watkins here. Right now, yes, Jordan Watkins, I think, based on the usage, based on reputation, production in the NFL, what he's earned, is receiver number 7 for the 49ers. It's Evans, Kirk, Pearsall, Robinson, Cowing, Stribling as your top 6. Watkins, I don't think anybody would give me a big argument that he's number 7. So then you ask, okay, do the 49ers, if everybody stays healthy, do they take 7 wide receivers? They have before on the 53. But when is the last time everybody has stayed healthy on the 53? Again, and this is not a 49ers specific thing. This is an NFL specific thing, like NFL, I guess an NFL general thing. Guys get hurt. The likelihood that everyone is in perfect health at the end of training camp and preseason in that receiver room is not very high. The likelihood that they stay in perfect health moving beyond into the regular season is even smaller. So receiver being as valuable of a position as it is, you've got to make sure that's stocked up. So somebody like Jordan Watkins, I mean, they're going to keep him in the building. They'll find it. We'll see how it pans out. But making cut decisions right now just doesn't make a lot of sense because we don't know what's going to happen on that injury front over the course of training camp. We don't even know what's going to happen on the field in terms of how guys are going to perform. So we could just outline the depth and then say, okay, this is how the 49ers are set up to enter the next couple of months. As Eric Gomes says, every snap is a car crash. That's the league. That is the league. And that's why you have to build rosters that are as deep as possible. I mean, And there's a reason why the 49ers have been able to stay in contention despite a lot of the injuries, because they've done a good job building at the margins. That they have obviously have really good coaching, but they've done a good job insulating their rosters as much as possible. But at the end of the day, in order to have a chance to win the biggest prize, you have to be reasonably healthy along the front line, along those yellow A-list pillars, because that's what makes or breaks the ceiling in the NFL are your star players. You can stay afloat and you can obviously persevere through adversity with and you need it in his league with players beyond those A-list guys, but to see how good you truly can be, and Trent Williams touched on this the other day, it's about the yellow A-list players. And, Trent Williams says similar things about the 49ers as me. I like to say that great minds think alike. There are people who are just going to be negative and they're going to troll online who you're not connected to reality. Sorry, you're not correct. Nobody cares what you say. You can go run and argue with a wall on Twitter. There's a reason why people watch this. There's a reason why people listen to Trent Williams when he talks. He's a great football mind, and it's because Mike Evans, same thing. There's a reason why Mike Evans decided to come to San Francisco for less money, because people who are actually exposed to the game and know what they're talking about and are not sitting on anonymous accounts at home will understand how rosters work and how talent interplays with success. And the track record is the track record. The 49ers have won a lot of games over the course of the past decade. So obviously they're doing something right with the roster. Where it needs to break further in their favor is the ceiling, and that usually comes down to injuries. The last time they're relatively healthy, they were within a play of winning the Super Bowl, right? So that was 2023. They've got to get back to reasonable health moving into 2026 to compete at the highest levels in what probably is the greatest division in NFL history, with the Seattle Seahawks and the Los Angeles Rams all firing on all cylinders. Thank you, Michael. Appreciate you. Just trying to go through some of the comments here. MetLife turf thoughts. Well, that's tough. Never fun to play at MetLife. Well, my thoughts on that are you're about to see World Cup matches at MetLife, and they're going to have natural grass. And then they're going to yank the natural grass out just to put artificial turf back. That, to me, that's borderline criminal. Hey, why not find a way to just maintain the natural grass that they're going to install anyway? Seems like it's a relatively great expense to yank the natural grass out. Once FIFA is done with a stadium, I'm sure you can come to an agreement where you say, oh, hey, FIFA, don't worry about the grass. Thanks. We'll take care of it from here on out. Apparently, they're not going to do that at MetLife. They're not going to do that at SoFi. The injury rates are documented to be higher on turf, artificial turf, than on natural grass. All right. Any more good questions? Let's go for it. I don't see a lot of questions. That's why we've devolved into talking about the MetLife turf at this point. You want Kevin Zeitler to come in to be the 49ers right guard, move Purdy to left guard. Do not underestimate how difficult a move of sides is in the NFL. It is not the same playing left guard as it is right guard. I think the 49ers are very, very comfortable with Purdy at right guard. And don't underestimate how good of a run blocker Robert Jones might be for San Francisco. He succeeded in the McDaniel system as a run blocker. I think it's the pass blocking question for Robert Jones that is big. Can we talk about Purdy? Oh, I am talking about Purdy. I see a question about Dominic Puni. I mean, Puni played on a hurt knee last year. Puni also, Chris Furster has talked about it a lot. He's talked about the need for counter moves, right? That I thought was his, when he hit that rookie wall late in 2024, he needed to work on some counter moves and I talked about this yesterday, to combat what some of the best some of the best defensive tackles, interior rushers in the game were going to bring in the chess match over the course of the season. So the 2025 results are tough for Dominic Puni because he wasn't fully healthy. He is going to have that opportunity to showcase what kind of counter moves he's been working on as a healthy player in 2026. And I think that's really, really important to note. What is my opinion on the safety room? This is a good question. The safeties is a position that is inevitably going to be tied to the quality of a pass rush. Oh, we've seen it time and time again. The 49ers had an overpowering pass rush, and their safeties picked off a lot of passes from 2019 to about 2022, 2023. It got worse in 2023. They still had a good pass rush in 2023. They had a terrible pass rush this last year. They didn't pick off a lot of passes, and the safeties missed a lot of tackles. Raheem Morris is going to be very particular about the type of safeties that he brings in. And he even said both spots are up for competition. They would have been better with a better pass rush last year. Would they have been good enough for Raheem Morris? I don't know. I'm not afraid to say I don't know. I'm still collecting information on the safety front. So defense is all connected. And if you discount the fact that they only had 20 sacks, which is a league low last year, in your safety analysis, you're not going to get anywhere productive. That's for sure. That's all that I can say at this point. I mean, they brought in Tashawn Gibson ahead of 2022, and they had a good pass rush that year. That was the last time they had a top 5 defense. They were the best defense in the league that year. And Gibson intercepted 6 passes at age 32 that season? He had a fine year, even though the rest of the league probably thought he was washed up. That's why he hadn't been signed. So that just goes to show you that safety and pass rush are very, very connected. Like, it's something that you cannot disentangle. And that's why it's so hard for people to evaluate quarterbacks in the NFL, because quarterbacks are going to be connected with their receivers, with the scheme, with the offensive line. It's a team sport. That's the beauty of it all, right? It's a team sport that you have to look at it in that way. This is another question that is very related to that. How much responsibility do the corners have to shoulder for last year's defense, and how do you see them improving? I actually thought when you isolated it as much as you could, and I understand that it's impossible to fully isolate it. I just went on a whole tangent about how it's impossible to fully isolate it. But when you zoomed in as much as you could on the defensive struggles last year, I actually thought cornerback was last in the order of blame. I think the pass rush, especially the interior, the defensive tackles who generated only 56 combined pressures, combined. Osa Odigizua alone had 52 for Dallas, to give you some perspective. The interior pass rush was an issue. The exterior pass rush after Nick Bosa got hurt in week 3 was an issue. Linebacker wasn't good after Fred Warner got hurt in week 6. Safeties missed a lot of tackles last year for the 49ers. Statistically, the only part of the defense last year that performed above average as a group was the cornerback group. Deommodore Lenoir has been good throughout. Deommodore Lenoir has been really good throughout. Renardo Green was a little bit worse statistically. I'm saying a little bit worse than average last year, despite all the other problems around him, the pass rush and the run defense problems. Upton Stout was a revelation his rookie year. So I think the top 3 corners, that's actually something the 49ers shouldn't have to worry too much about. Like, those guys should be better if everything else is better around them. But those other positions, and that's where most of the work has been focused this offseason, those are the ones that the 49ers have to. We have another Aiyuk video. Oh, my goodness. Should I play it, Mike? Mike, watch it first. I don't want to play anything crazy profane. Mike, let me know if it's cool to play. I don't want to put something up there that is not safe for work. Because Aiyuk has been going crazy posting stuff. So we're going to get this up, but you got to let me know. Yeah, we can play it. Oh, we have another Aiyuk video. This started as a 49ers receiver update. Ricky Pearsall online for a big year. 2 thumbs up there. Mike Evans, everybody is raving about him. Apparently he's cooking everybody at practice during OTAs. That's what George Kittle said. But Brandon Aiyuk, who technically still is on the 49ers team, checks in. And this is what he had to say on social media.
And another thing, you want to know why they really mad, though? They mad because they stupid. They dumb. They mad that they paid me $50 million in 8 months. And they avoided my guarantees for 2027. And I'm about to be on a new team in 2027. They mad at they selves for real. Niggas acting like they mad at me, but they stupid ass mad at they self.
All right, that's the most specific Brandon Aiyuk has gotten. The 49ers did indeed pay him nearly $50 million over 2 years, so he verified the numbers there. $48.1 million for 7 games played. I don't think Brandon Aiyuk would be posting as much as he is if things were going the way that he expected them to. I think that Brandon Aiyuk, thought that they would have just released him if he caused enough trouble. But here's the thing, like, nobody in their right mind would think that you can take $48.1 million from an organization and then just not meet your half of the obligation and think that there will be no consequences. Brandon Aiyuk is facing the consequences right now of his actions. Brandon Aiyuk walked out on the team and the 49ers say, well, you signed the contract that gave you the $48 million over 2 years. You signed that contract. So we got team control over you through what, 2029? Long time from now, maybe 28. I forgot when it is. But they have a long leash of team control here. And they're not just going to let it go because Brandon Aiyuk decided not to honor his side of the obligation. Like, they don't have to because of the way that he has handled this. So I think that the Aiyuk probably wasn't listening to his advisors. That I'm just me speculating right there. And he thought that this would be a whole lot more of a clean exit for him than it has been. He's obviously frustrated that they haven't released him. And legally, the writing is on the wall right here. The 49ers, unless Aiyuk comes in and forces his release, and it doesn't seem like he is humble enough to do that right now. I think that it seems like he's in some kind of ego match with the 49ers right now. He might be embarrassed. I don't know. Unless he comes in, they don't have to pay him. They don't have to do anything. So, I mean, and even if he did come in, they could theoretically and pass the physical. They could wait. They could slow play this until that money was due on September 1st. But I don't even know if it's going to get to that point with Brandon Aiyuk. This is crazy. But wow. All right. Brandon Aiyuk finishes up the 49ers receiver update. How about we not talk about Brandon Aiyuk, and how about we finish it with something like this? Ricky Pearsall, top of the league when it came to the 2024 draft class and some of his performance in 2025 before the PCL. And Pearsall healthy now, and Pearsall ready to turn on the afterburners in 2026. That's a whole lot more relevant to the 49ers on-field chances than Brandon Aiyuk. If you guys have any questions about Aiyuk, sure, I'll answer any good ones, but I don't know what else to say about that situation. I mean, it's seems cut and dry at this point. I think we've explained it all. And it's funny because we were saying all this like 3 or 4 months ago. It seemed like the rest of the media caught on a few weeks ago with the whole Brandon Aiyuk may actually have to show up to move the needle. And yeah, what we were saying is exactly what's happening. The 49ers hold all the cards here, and now Brandon Aiyuk, maybe he was reading or watching the wrong YouTube channels and didn't get good advice on the situation. If he was watching this one, then he probably would know that showing up was his best course of action. Now he realizes that this is not going the way that he thought it might go, and now he's upset, so he's posting every other day on Instagram. I mean, one of the biggest issues here is that if Aiyuk shows up in Santa Clara County, they're going to arrest him because there's a warrant out after the speeding thing. I mean, this thing has just gone sideways in so many different directions. Did he say 2027 in there? Wait, I got to play this again. Sorry. I'm getting too sucked into this. He's going to be on a new team in 2027, not 2020. Here, let's listen to this.
And another thing, you want to know why they really mad, though? They mad because they stupid. They dumb. They mad that they paid me $50 million in 8 months. And they avoided my guarantees for 2027. And I'm about to be on a new team in 2027. They mad at they selves for real. Niggas acting like they mad at me, but they stupid ass mad at they self.
I think he said, I'm going to be on a new team in 2026, but it wasn't really clear. But he said they voided his guarantees for 2027, which isn't true. They voided his guarantees for 2026. It just sounds like he's got his dates mixed up. But who knows? Who knows? Wow. All right. Any more questions? Everybody, thanks for watching. I think that should do it for this show. Hit that subscribe button. We'll talk to you soon.